Welcome on inside the Entrepreneur Wrap. Each and every show, we talk to the experts, the entrepreneurs, to give you advice, drop that knowledge to continue your success in your respective careers and businesses. This episode, we are talking to Brett Podolsky. He is the co-founder of The Farmer's Dog, recently got named Forbes 30 Under 30. Super successful guy who started back in 2014, The Farmer's Dog, and essentially their mission is to fundamentally change the way people think about feeding their pets. We obviously have talked to other guest, Ryan Bethencourt, who is kind of in the same industry, which is super interesting. And we've talked, I think, with Ryan about Beyond Meat and that IPO, one of the most successful ever. So, people are definitely thinking about their health the most they ever have in history, right? And now it's really going down to that next level, which is people's animals, which they love and adore and are part of the family as well. So interesting to hear his story. Again, subscription-based pet health brand, and they're on a mission to disrupt the pet food industry. I want to ask him all about that, but also get his thoughts on entrepreneurship, raising capital, culture, all those things that go into it that we all can learn, and his favorite books, favorite inspirational words that he's ever received, best advice, all those questions we asked and more on the Entrepreneur Wrap, episode 35, Brett Podolsky from The Farmer Dog. All right, he is the co-founder of The Farmer's Dog. He recently made the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Brett Podolsky joins us on the Entrepreneur Wrap. Brett, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, thank you. I want to have you dig in a little bit for our listeners. Can you explain to them what The Farmer's Dog is all about, and also just, what your guys' mission is over there?
Sure. So, it's pretty simple. We make fresh, real food for dogs. We got our start because my dog, I had experienced her being sick, and I tried every food on the market. Finally, I tried feeding her real, fresh food from a doctor's recommendation, and that's when I realized that, at what point in history did food, where did the food come out of dog food? There's no such thing as these little brown balls in nature. They eat food. So that realization was really, really interesting to me. So I started looking into the industry, and what I found was actually really alarming. The way that they make pet food is very, very different from the way that they market pet food. And right now, the status quo of the industry is these brown balls that we've been conditioned to believe are healthy. And I think we all know intuitively eating highly processed anything every single day of our lives, let alone every meal of our lives, is really, really bad for us. So anyway, after looking, I tried to find a company that I felt comfortable feeding my dog. And to make a long story short, when I realized there was just no company in existence that I would be comfortable feeding my dog, Jonathan and I decided to build that company.
That's awesome. Where you did the history, obviously. So where did the processed dog food even come from? Is that, was it built out of convenience? Was it based on price? Where did that kind of culture start from?
Yeah. So, it used to be just table scraps and just essentially eating the same thing
leftovers.
Yeah, exactly. And that was real food at the time. It wasn't complete and balanced, so they weren't getting all their nutrients. But eventually commercialized pet food started coming out. They used a lot of horse meat at one point, and they canned it, which was much better for shelf stability purposes. World War II came around, and the country needed the metal for ammunition, for instance. And so they had to stop using the metal, and they needed to figure out a way to make pet food shelf stable. So they found this process that had been used in other industries called extrusion, which essentially means that you're pulling all the moisture out and introducing extremely, extremely high heat to the food, and it turns it into these brown balls. And what we're finding today is that when you introduce that level of heat, really above 250 degrees Fahrenheit, a byproduct of that, it's this thing called the Maillard reaction. And a byproduct of the Maillard reaction is acrylamide, and acrylamide causes cancer in animals. So that starts to, people start to, when you learn that, people start to connect the dots. Like look at cancer rates in dogs. It's astronomical.
So obviously you had a personal connection. You're passionate about this subject, which would you agree is it a super important part of any type of success for a business to initially have that fire or passion or connection before you kind of dive all in head first?
I really do think so. I mean, I guess it depends on what your motivation is as a person. I mean, some people just really love money, and so anything, I guess, could work for them. Personally, I need to be really passionate about solving a problem and making people happy or changing people's lives. And when, for me and Jonathan, just knowing what is out there in pet food and how people are feeding their pets and how companies are marketing to these people who really just want to give their dogs the healthiest food they can and think they are, that for us it kind of drove us nuts. And we wanted to build a company that has respect for their customers and has respect for people and loves dogs.
That's awesome. So you guys have this idea. You're really excited about it. You're super passionate about it. Walk me through kind of the granular steps of what happens next, because did you originally try to start making it yourself? Did you try to get another partner involved? Was it trying to get capital immediately? Kind of what was your initial stage of this?
So when I was thinking about it, I had this my best friend living on my couch. His name was Jonathan, and he is like the smartest guy I've ever met and most integrity of anybody I've ever met. Just like an absolute wonderful person and brilliant. And he was like my dream co-founder, but he had a great job. And when he was like kind of helping me in just, before the company even had a name or anything, just like when I was thinking about it, he was helping advise and just kind of point me in the right direction of where to start, because I had never done it before.
And what were your guys' background before this?
After college, I was at a hedge fund, and then I decided that, just a money-focused career was not the right thing for me at that time. I wanted to do something I was passionate about, so I ended up leaving the hedge fund to pursue my dream of being a stand-up comic.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I moved to New York, and I became a stand-up comic. Jonathan, he had been recruited to a venture capital firm to be an entrepreneur in residence. So during college, he basically left, went to Vietnam, and built a company. So when he was like very young guy, awesome. So he had had this experience. So anyway, he was living at my apartment. I convinced him to move to New York. He was living at my apartment, and when he finally was like, "Yeah, I think I'm interested," we went to a vet office and met some vets to kind of pitch them on like, this is what we're thinking about doing. And when we saw their reaction, he was like, "All right, I'm in. We're going to change the pet food industry together."
That's awesome. So once that moment happens, like I mentioned, I kind of geek out over the fine details, but are you in your kitchen kind of trying to create some prototypes? Are you immediately trying to figure out how much money you're going to need to kind of pull this off? Like, what are those initial few months look like?
Yeah, so at the beginning, we definitely did not look at this like the classic VC-backed startup. It really wasn't like that. We were like, let's build a really healthy family-style business. Let's make dogs healthy in New York. And then if things work out as we expect them to, we could expand, and we'll raise money when it really makes sense. So we each put $5,000 in each, which forced us to really focus on our unit economics and focus on our customer and make the experience incredible. And at the end of the day, it was actually the best thing that ever happened to us, because we have a business now where since day one, we've focused on the efficiencies of the business, as opposed to, a lot of startups you go and raise money and you're essentially losing money on every transaction. And it's not really a sustainable business. And then years down the line, you're left with a big mess to try to clean up.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, because as a fellow business owner as well, I'm almost scared what would have happened if somebody handed me a check for even $100,000, $200,000. I think I would have hired a bunch of people I thought I needed. I think I would have got a big office space because I think I need that to recruit. And by not having the money and counting every penny, you almost develop a very efficient, streamlined business in the front end because you have no other choice. You can't eat lunch if you don't do it the right way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're just forced to develop really great habits.
So starting out on your business, how long are you guys have been in business so far?
We did our launch in 2016.
Okay.
So like our launch was 3 years ago, but we were developing it for about 2 years before that. So we were figuring out what our customer wants.
Got it.
The actual economics and the unit economics of the product itself, what the product needs to be, how the experience needs to happen. Everything from A to Z. We were cooking, we were delivering, we were the customer service reps. We were everything. And it allowed us to really understand how to build this business thoughtfully.
And then, as we see here today in 2019, how many full-time employees do you guys have? Or how do you work it out?
I think we just crossed the 70 mark.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're hiring like crazy. So if anybody's out there and loves dogs.
I'll share it on my LinkedIn. I got you. From that 2014 time period where you're developing all the way to today, what's the biggest lesson you've learned in this journey so far?
Wow.
Getting deep on you.
Well, yeah. Well, I think I think you really want to stick to what you know is right. Like when you have a mission, don't make short-sighted decisions that for small gains, what seem like big gains, which I think also works with my other piece of advice that I love giving people is having patience.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean go. Yeah, and it doesn't mean go slow. It just means have patience and don't rush into things because you want to, because you want some like that. You want to hit some vanity metric now,
right.
Really focus on the big picture.
And for you, what was the biggest moment? I mean, I know from a product standpoint, when products get into Costco or whatever, those are kind of the moments in companies that take you to that next frontier. For you guys, what was that big moment that took you from this is a small thing to holy crap, we're going to have 70 employees here shortly?
Well, I think one of the most exciting moments for us, raising capital is always obviously great because it just allows us to keep doing what we're doing for longer and scale it and reach our dreams quicker, which is great. But something that, and I don't know if it's just unique to us because we are a dog food company who makes only human quality products.
Got it.
And if you make food in a dog food facility, it's not human quality. It's feed grade.
Yep.
And that was not something we were willing to do just for safety, just for food safety purposes. But I called, when I tell you, every single manufacturer in this country that uses meat in their facility, I called all of them. Huh. And by the time I said the name of our company to them, and they did you say dog? They're like, sorry.
Really?
No can do. Yeah, they would not have a dog food company in their facility, even though we're making food that's of the highest quality. They, I guess, maybe could have been scared that they were going to maybe lose other clients. So anyway, to make a long story short, we ended up finding the best manufacturing partner there is. They are unbelievable. They have all of the resources you could ever need, and in terms of food safety, there's just nowhere better we could be. It just doesn't get safer than the facility like this. And then on top of that, in terms of capacity, that's always been a huge restraint for us. We've always had the handcuffs on since day one. We've always had the demand, but we never had the ability to create the food at the scale. Now we're completely limitless.
That's
we
awesome.
we could service every dog who wants to eat our food.
And what were you doing before then? Was it just roll your sleeves up and figure it out internally? Or?
So it started with a commercial kitchen that we rented.
Okay.
And then we found like a catering hall. And then we found a USDA facility that was actually willing to work with us. The first one that was really willing to work with us. And we kind of, worked up to their capacity. And then we moved and we found an even bigger facility and better partner where our capacity is now limitless.
So every no got you closer to that yes that ultimately was a blessing in disguise in a way, right?
Yeah. And it's a perfect example of patience because we could have very easily been like, you know what, let's go do a big round and build our own facility. But we didn't because we just knew that was not, it's just not a skill set that we had. And we'd rather partner with a facility who's been doing it for 50 years, who focuses on food safety and quality.
And the food facilities that weren't interested because of the word dog, was that because they're worried about Vons or Costco if they're trying to sell grade A steaks and they find out they're also cooking quote unquote dog food? Is that the potential PR they didn't want, or?
Yeah, I think they were just concerned about another client of theirs who's probably much bigger than we are saying, "Hey, I'm not putting our human food in a dog food facility,
right,
even though it's human food."
That makes total sense. So how are you guys now defining success? Because you talk about obviously being able to scale with with extra capital. What's kind of the end game? In entrepreneurship land, you hear about BHAGs a lot, the big, hairy, audacious goal. But where would you guys like to be at the end of the day?
Yeah. So the goal for us, we're here to fundamentally change the way people think about feeding their pets. And you don't need to be our customer. You really don't. As long as you're not feeding your dog highly processed food. If you're feeding your dog fresh food, if you're cooking them a complete and balanced diet, or you're feeding them another fresh food company, as long as it's fresh food, it's complete and balanced, we're happy. That's a win in our book. So in terms of our long-term, lofty vision goal, we believe that what we're doing and what it'll spark, and we call it, the fresh food movement or the healthy eating movement, if you will. Once the whole world understands that this is how you should be feeding your dog, we believe that we are going to see the life expectancy of the entire species change. And then we'll move on to cats too.
Let's get into that so it's more about the education long term for you guys, with this company kind of being the catalyst for that.
Yeah, for us, again, it's not, if you're feeding food from us, amazing.
Right.
It's obviously fantastic for us. But I meet people all the time who are feeding, home cooked food, and I'm just like, amazing.
Good for you.
I'm not trying to convince them to switch to us, or if they're feeding, a competitor. We don't refer to our competitors as competitors. They're our allies because they're doing good things. And yeah, if I meet people who are feeding a competitor's food, I'm happy about it. I'm never trying to convince them to switch. But if they're feeding kibble, they're going to get an earful.
I'm sure you more than anybody understands the data behind it. Has there been any studies, any focus groups, if you will, about the difference being compared a same species type animal with a healthy diet versus the processed diet?
There's actually some studies that are currently going on right now, and we're working on a few things to conduct studies so we can very specifically prove the difference between, putting all the macronutrients identical and one food is processed and one food isn't. So being able to truly test exactly what we're talking about. But in terms of anecdotal evidence, we have tens of thousands of real live examples. They weren't conducted in a proper scientific study setting. But yeah, there's just so much anecdotal evidence. We have a ton of customers who found us and their dog was healthy and they felt that there was no reason to switch, but they gave it a try, figuring their dog would like the flavor more or whatever reason. And then they see these changes in their dog that they had never expected. Just their coat, their energy level, their breath, all of these little indicators that show you that they're a much healthier dog now. And they're obviously blown away when they see that because they weren't expecting any changes at all.
Is your hypothesis as well that life expectancy, if they say right now the average for a Boston Terrier is 10 years with new diets over time, what you're saying is potentially that can go up the average?
I think on a mass scale,
macro level,
yeah, I can never tell anybody your dog.
No, of course,
specifically, because who knows, exactly. Unfortunately. But yeah, I'm very confident in that. I think generally there's been the paradigm shift in human beings where we understand the power that food has on our health.
Well, yeah, and you see that with humans, right? It was from smoking to eating McDonald's every day. These are things that culture just thought was normal. And now you see we're all healthier beings as we've kind of learned, like, that wasn't really smart to smoke a carton of cigarettes every day. There's no reason you would say with another species or with dogs that we won't look back 50, 100 years from now like, well, why did we do that?
Yeah, I think people are going to look back and be like, I can't believe we thought feeding them these like shelf-stable brown, like we believed that these like that shelf-stable brown balls had like meat and vegetables that like I would feed my beloved pet to these things.
I think about this. I think when we get older too, like our kids are gonna ask us. So, because we're here in San Diego, SeaWorld, I always say like, so you used to have trainers swim in the same tank as a killer whale? Like, it is stuff that happens in our culture that just is normal, and then it's not normal all of a sudden. You look back at it like that was pretty silly. So I think probably
think about all the things we ate growing up too.
I know, exactly.
Oh my God.
So I have some rapid fire for you, just kind of a lot of entrepreneurs obviously listening to the show. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
I have a few, but I mean, Bezos, it's hard to not think of, and it's hard to not think of him. I was trying to pull out like
just hope he doesn't get in your industry. Then it gets scary.
I know. I'm like constantly anxious thinking about that. So maybe if I show him some love right now, he won't come for me. No, I mean, you can't not be blown away with what they've been able to accomplish. The thing that I love about what he's done, it's not only that he's like the richest man in the world and like all the things he's been able to accomplish, it's that he's stuck to his original plan the entire time. He is obsessed with his customers. And that is something that I've always really focused on. It's not about how big his companies are or the success or any of those things. It's how he looks at customers. And I just don't think that enough companies are looking at their customers the way that he does.
And how hungry he stays too. Like he's launched so much. Like he could just keep on going with what he's doing, but he's launching. I think he's getting the medical supplies now. Like every day you hear a whole new industry he's disrupting, which is incredible.
Yeah, he's a special guy.
What book has inspired you, or is there a book in particular that really helped you throughout your career that you recommend and others read?
Yes. So there's this book by Dale Carnegie. I think everybody knows How to Win Friends and Influence People. I hate the name because you can't not sound sleazy.
Yeah, exactly.
How to influence people. But I think it's a beautiful book in understanding just the simple things that are basically common sense. And just putting it to the front of your mind and remembering just the simple things and, how important relationships are. And there's not enough emphasis on EQ. 100%. Everybody wants, and EQ is everything. You could be a brilliant person, but if you're not a fun person to work with, it's gonna be hard to get a good job.
What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received. I think it was to stop looking at other people, stop looking at other companies. Don't just take what another company does that's successful as, this is the standard. This is what you're supposed to do. I think, and it's a piece of advice. I believe I learned that actually from my co-founder, Jonathan, where he's always looking at other companies that are super successful and poking holes in what they're doing. And we do things very, very differently, and they've been extremely successful for us. And when you're an early founder, you tend to doubt yourself, and you want to do whatever the $1 billion founders are doing until you do the opposite, and it works really, really well. Not always look for people. Don't look at other people and just assume just because they're successful that they have it all figured out.
Yeah, that's a good point. What did you learn from your biggest mistake or biggest failure, and how has that helped you today?
It's funny. I think my the biggest failure that I always think about was just not being able to find a manufacturer in the earlier days. And for years, it haunted me. I'm like, oh my God, we can't grow because I can't find a manufacturer. How can I not? How do I need somebody better than me to be able to find the manufacturer? And then finally, when we found when somebody took us in was when I realized like it was meant to be that
exactly.
way.
Yeah.
It was meant to go down this way. And so I keep going back to this idea of patience. Patience is my number one thing. And again, not to go slow, but to be patient.
Yeah. And it is funny when you have those failures or those missteps, if it's glass half full or glass half empty, you can look at it like, oh, woe was me, or, well, that kind of sucked, but now I know for the future I've been educated in this subject type deal. So I definitely feel you on that. What's the biggest sacrifice you've had to make in order to be a successful entrepreneur?
Time, for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't feel like I'm missing out because I feel like I'm making an impact.
Yeah.
And something that's so important to me and Jonathan is our team. I am obsessed with every single person in our company. They're the most talented, intelligent, wonderful, kind people. We put a huge emphasis on making sure that everybody here loves being here and would not want to be anywhere else.
That's awesome, because I'm really big on culture. I don't think it's talked about enough. How did you guys establish that culture, and how do you make sure all 70 of your employees are able to kind of speak to that North Star or keep that front and center?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times culture is this aspirational list of words that's laminated and slapped on the wall and never looked at again. When we created our cultural values, we didn't come up with them. They kind of presented themselves. We identified pieces of our culture that already existed just naturally because of who Jonathan and I are and some of the other leaders that we've brought on and the elements that they've brought to the company and how it's formed. And we were able to put these things down on paper, and we took a long time to really figure it out. We were really thoughtful about it, and we talk about it constantly. In every all hands meeting, we go through our values again.
Yep.
And then we'll do call outs to people on the team who exhibited those values. So we have 5 of them, and anybody on the team who exhibits those values. We also have Slack channels for each one of them. So anytime there's somebody on the team, so we're constantly about calling each other out for doing positive things. I
like that.
It's all about making other people happy and, giving shout outs to people to make sure that they're recognized and they're appreciated and the whole company knows how special they are.
And I'm assuming that's how you hire, that's how you fire. I mean, that's everything kind of points to that.
Yeah, no question. No question about it.
Are there like 3 to 5 key elements for starting and running a successful business that you've just learned, whether it's been trial and error or maybe through your business partner or other people in your circle, that could just be key tenets to anybody trying to be successful in the game?
Yeah. Value your team, because at the end of the day, I don't care how smart you are, or how unbelievable your business model is, or how good you are at raising money. A company is just people. And if you don't have really amazing people who really love what they're doing and you're able to trust them and give them the autonomy to be the rock stars that they are, it's all going to fall apart.
I love it.
I think you've really got to drop your ego. Humility is so, so key. Nobody wants to be around, especially somebody that they're reporting to who's got an ego. Yeah. Like it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be vulnerable. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. Yeah. As a leader, you have to be really good at bringing the best out of everybody else. Just kind of being a quarterback and letting everybody else shine. You don't need all the, all the limelight. Yeah, exactly. Luckily for me, I actually am surrounded by people who are just so brilliant, and they're all so much better than I am at doing their jobs that I'm so lucky, and I trust them. I mean, if I just stop showing up to the office, we just keep growing amazingly. Awesome. That's how much I trust these guys.
Good for you. So yeah, tell the audience where they can find more. I think if you listen to this podcast from start to finish, I'm sure anybody who's a dog owner is like, all right, I can't feed my dog. My sister loves her dog more than anything on the world. And I think I'm going to call her after this and tell her, look into it. Cause I mean, it makes so much sense, but like you said, a lot of even the book that you talk about, Dale Carnegie, there's a lot of common sense things that we as people don't think about. But when someone kind of breaks it down articulately, like you did, it just makes so much sense to at least look into it more.
Yeah. The other book that just came to mind is The Toyota Way. It talks about like the Kaizen manufacturing process. And it's actually one of our cultural values. It's called Seek Better.
I like it.
It's about constant improvement, and there's no such thing as perfect. And that's something that we talk about here constantly. Everything is good, but it could be way better.
Yeah.
And we're always looking for how to make everything better. The experience, the product, the culture, you name it.
I love it. So yeah, tell us how we can find out more about the Farmer's Dog and where people can dig more into it.
Yeah. So if you go to thefarmersdog.com, you can check us out. And if you go to thefarmersdog.com/Brett, BRETT, you'll get your first trial box on me. So Your first box will be for free.
All my employees knew I was in an interview today, and they said they're all dog owners. Like, tell them to send a free sample. But yeah,
you got it.
I'm definitely going to check that out, and hope the listeners do too, because it's definitely interesting what you're doing. And I mean, you're pulling on a very emotional heartstring. People in 2019, more than any other era, I think. I mean, the dog is family, so it's so important to treat them like you would anybody else. So, Brett, thanks so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it. Any lasting words or any advice for people out there hustling and trying to get where you're at?
Try everything. Find something that sticks. Find something that you really, really love to do, and try to make money off of it.
I love it.
For me, it's dogs.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for dropping the knowledge, man. That was some awesome stuff. You definitely provided a lot of value, and we'll check you out, thefarmersdog.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks so much for Brett for joining the podcast. I don't know. I know for me, anyways, I'm going to be probably calling definitely my parents and sister at some point tonight and let them know they need to look into this, because it makes too much sense. Really cool what he's doing, and the mission and the vision that him and his partner have to not only be successful as a business, but also educate really the whole world on kind of how we can give our pets a more healthier lifestyle. Entrepreneur Wrap, each and every show, we're talking to the entrepreneurs, talking to the experts to give you advice and drop some knowledge to help you with your respective careers and businesses. We ask you each and every show, of course, to rate us on iTunes 5 stars if you appreciate the show and we're providing value for you. As always, my name is David Brickley, host of Entrepreneur Wrap, right here on iTunes, YouTube, stn.digital. We'll see you next time.